box, so we'll make a start. If there's any other people to come in, I'll try and let them in as and when. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Herefordshire Means Business Networking Online. My name's Rich, and I'm one of the team here at Herefordshire Means Business. And with me, I've got two of our other team members. Kerry, do you want to give a wave? And Richard as well. Somewhere, there he is. Okay. We, in the normal world, run business events within Herefordshire. It's good to see a couple of new faces again with us today. And hopefully sometime in 2021, we will be running live face-to-face events again. In the meantime, we've been running these online events once a month as a way of still keeping connections together, sharing what's been going on, and hopefully being a bit of a support to people who are working from home. We've had a few guest speakers throughout 2020, and we've got some more guest speakers booked in for this year too. I think we're probably going to carry on doing these online events even when we are able to do face-to-face events, because I think some people actually prefer doing this. So we will be carrying on doing these. And hopefully in 2021, we've got some new events and things that we're going to be launching as well. Watch this space. We do record this meeting, so if there's bits that you missed from the talk that's coming up, you can go back and have a look at it, because we'll post it on our YouTube page later today, hopefully, and also send out a copy of it and also a copy of the chat box with any links and things in there for you to look at later. The way the event runs, we start with our talk. We've got our guest speaker, then we've got a bit of a Q&A section. So if you've got any things that you want to ask the speaker, then feel free to either put a question in the chat box or put a Q or something in the chat box so that we can come to you afterwards for the questions. And then after that, we'll have with what time's left, a bit of open networking. So if you've got things you want to share or ask, then we can have a bit of sharing, caring section at the end. So we're going to move on to our guest speaker. So our speaker today is Gareth Williams, who is the founder of Caplor Energy. And that's probably as far as my knowledge of sustainability and things go. So I don't have an awful lot of knowledge of that. So Gareth, have you got slides you want to share? Do you want me to give you access to share your screen? Let me see if I can do that. Okay, you should be getting that through now. And I'll hand over to you. So
weird. Go for that one then. Just for a bit of feedback, Richard or anyone, what can you see right now?
I can see your PowerPoint screen.
Brilliant. And is it a picture of a street?
It's a street with the sun in front.
Brilliant. There we are. That's it. We've succeeded. Okay. So thanks very much for inviting me to come along. And I'll do my best to deal with the technology and all that sort of thing. It's getting used to talking online is not the easiest thing in the world. I think we'll see if it's going to just move on. Hopefully it's changed screen now.
Yeah, that's
brilliant. Hey, look at us. So I'm going to probably chatter away for about 30 minutes. If I start looking like I'm going to do that for longer, please just start heckling, because that'll be the best way to shut me up. I do tend to waffle. And what I'm going to try and do is talk for a little bit, and it'd be really great, yeah, if that does stimulate some conversation at the end. So do try and think up some stuff. There must be something in amongst the things that I say, hopefully, that'll give you some ideas or something to chat about. If during, I think again, as Richard said, if during whilst I'm talking, you have some ideas, jot those down. And if I multitask and read it at the same time, I might even try to address them or make sure we get to it during my chatter. And basically what I'm going to do is talk about a little bit of introduction to Caplor as a whole. Hope that's okay, just to give you some who on earth am I. I talk about sustainability as a whole, and hopefully I'm preaching to a fairly converted. If not, it'll be brilliant. And then a few opportunities within what you might think about, obviously from the sort of stable of the sort of stuff we might do to perhaps stimulate thoughts and ideas in your business. So if that's okay, we'll march on with that. Is everyone hearing me okay? Is that good too? Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Look at that.
Excellent. Very good.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm off. Okay. Not really. So first of all, you know, who are we, Caplor? I'm looking over there because I'm looking at the presentation at the same time. Not because I'm distracted. Basically, yeah, Caplor, it's the name of the hill behind us. We're in a village called Foundhope, just south of Hereford. And Caplor Hill is a hill fort. It's a lovely hill fort. I don't know if any of you have been there. Wave if you've ever been to Caplor Hill.
Excellent place.
There we are. Good, good. That's good. Yeah, it's a wonderful Iron Age hill fort as the Wye Valley Walk runs through our farm. So we're third generations farmers here since 1923. So we're coming up to our 100th anniversary in a couple of years' time. We might have a party if we're allowed to. Hopefully it won't be a Zoom one. And historically, yes, we were into farming. I did a degree in agriculture back in the late 80s and thought I was going to be farming. And then slowly, perhaps because I was a farmer, I took more and more interest in what was going on in the environment and ended up doing the Nuffield Scholarship and other things. And it was looking around even in the early 90s then what was going on around the world in terms of straw being used for biomass. And I saw these things that in Denmark called windmills. I hadn't got a clue what they were. Very strange contraptions, and straw and household waste. This is way back in the early 90s. Household waste being mixed with straw to make energy. You know, stuff that we're even still thinking about decades later here. But anyway, it sort of pricked an interest, and we'll come back to that energy story in a minute. But meanwhile, we've had a farm business. We developed it. We've shrunk it back a lot now. We still farm maybe a couple of 100 acres in Herefordshire, just around Foundhope, which is a mix of grass and some arable crops. We have a little tiny small holding in Malawi, which was going to be, or maybe one day will be a demonstration site for renewables. But we've just planted our maize crop for this year there. It's very exciting. We have a residue of a property business. We still do property rentals here. We used to have a letting agency based in Merthyr Tydfil, and that evolved because we were building new build houses and renovating houses, ended up having a whole plethora of them and needed a letting agency. So we did that for 10 years. We stopped doing that a couple of years ago. One of the other things that I'm really very proud of, working with my brother 6 years ago now, we set up what's called Caplor Horizons. It's a charity, it's an independent charity. It's got its own website. It's quite, I believe, quite interesting. They work mostly with other not-for-profits or socially aware businesses to work on strategy and management, mentoring, all sorts of really, really good stuff. Working all around the world, even this year with COVID, they've had to basically go from jumping on an airplane every 5 minutes to working literally online. It's incredible how they've pivoted, to use that overused word, into actually delivering more work around the world now than they were pre-COVID. Quite a story. Anyway, so that's tickling on. But yeah, our main interest in what we're sort of focusing on today perhaps is sustainability and Caplor Energy. That kind of started doing something in 2007 with an epiphany moment for me, which I can go into in great length. But we were basically trying to farm. We got flooded out, 5 inches of rain in the middle of summer. I don't know if you remember back then, but Gloucester was underwater. Well, we lost about £100,000 that day on potatoes that were due to be harvested only 48 hours later. I thought, wow, that's weird. It was at the same time I've been out in Africa, West Africa, doing some climate work with agriculture. I thought, what is happening here? You know, the projects that had been done only a few years earlier were failing because of climate change. And back here, the IPCC report was being done internationally, which was saying climate change really is something you guys should wake up to, you guys being the human race. And I had young kids. And that was probably the biggest thing in my mind. I had some young kids, and I thought, if I'm going to do something significant about climate change, which seems to be the threat of the human race going forwards for the next century probably, then I really won't feel very satisfied with myself. So we ended up starting to do things with renewable energy and basically installing renewable projects, and that has evolved, and that's what we still do today, and that's the main focus of what we do really. So that's Caplor, and I can waffle on about that for ages, but I'll try and move on. There we are. There's some web links there. Have a look. Basically, sustainability, though. Well, sustainability is there's a little definition. It's, you know, being able to continue over a period of time. That's sustainability. It means that we can keep doing it and it won't run out. And basically what human race is doing now in some rapid tall order is we're making things not sustainable. It's pretty much as simple as that. And interesting, that little graph there that you can see is the use of the word sustainability over the years. And you can see increasingly it is getting more and more airtime. Sustainability, it's quite a thing. And thankfully it is quite a thing because it's got some pretty dire consequences. And basically there's sort of, and I might be preaching to the converted, so, you know, either this is good revision or it's like, you know, a bit of an introduction here, but sustainability is basically, quite often we talk about 3 pillars of sustainability, and that's how we try to run our business here. We think about the social impact of what we're doing. That's with all our stakeholders, you know, the people who work here, but also all our clients and customers and people we're involved with. And we talk about the environmental impact of what we're doing, which is massively significant, because even if you don't care about the environment is what we live in, and it cares, you know, it doesn't care about us, but it impacts on what we're doing. And increasingly there's more and more noise telling us about those impacts. And of course, economically, we need to operate economically because our society works on money. So these things have to tie together. And quite often over the years, certainly with lots of different hats that I wear, those things get pulled out in different directions, but they got to work together. They got to work in unison. And that's really important to remember, I think. And this is just simple proof of global warming. I've used this pretty much every talk I've done for 10 years. People get bogged down in graphs. So here is just some visual, obvious evidence that global warming is a real thing. You're convinced. Everyone convinced. Give me a wave just to show you're awake.
It's a good graphic. I love it.
There we are. We're awake, kids. Yeah. Feel free to heckle. And then what's going on? So around the world, here's a quick flashpoint of a load of things. There is loads of stuff going on around the world. International treaties, that's why the Eiffel Tower is there, the Paris Agreement. 196, if not 200 countries now all signed up saying, yes, we have to do stuff about climate change. The IPCC reports that I referred to earlier, the United Nations, countries all over the world, Australia, so on and so on, all doing massive things around climate change now. It's really, like you saw on that graph, something it's beginning to take off. And I put Walmart, Google, other companies like that down because those mega companies, they're investing, some of them are investing literally, you know, hundreds of millions of pounds into sustainability measures. A, because they can see the future, but also B, it does make good business sense, as we'll talk about in a bit. The guy on the top right, I don't know if you've seen him before, he's been in the news a bit lately, that Donald Trump fella. Well, I was putting him on there because he was like one of the lone voices who was saying that climate change wasn't a thing, but you know, hopefully he's going to shoot himself in his own foot about his credibility at the moment. And with that change in America now to Biden, who's got a much stronger climate agenda, that's going to be even more significant going forwards. And yeah, at the bottom there, you see Price Waterhouse. You know, their research is showing that climate tech is growing at a phenomenal rate. You know, that's a big old statistic, isn't it? But 5 times faster than the average of other industry investments. So it's just, you know, as well as a political thing, that's going back to those pillars there, it's really, really economically a massive driver and opportunity. And just to mention it now, in case I forget later, just a few weeks ago, it was identified, you know, the government's report is saying that in the next 10 years, 2% could be added to GDP because of environmental green recovery type work. It's a massive economic driver, as well as an imperative from the remembering the pants diagram. That's Greta Thunberg. Most people recognize her now. David Attenborough, we probably looking around the room, most of us grew up with David Attenborough, I should think. And people like Extinction Rebellion, pesky as they are, gluing themselves to things and being irritating. There's been a lot of noise the last couple of years. Obviously the last 12, well, less than 12 months, but with COVID, there's been a hell of a shift. Obviously COVID is an immediate and present danger to human beings. So climate change has just sort of been tickling along in the background, but there's been a huge increase in noise and a huge increase in public attention to climate change in the last couple of years, thankfully. And yeah, there's some discussions there. I won't bother going into it, but look at the thing along the bottom. We're thinking we're doing stuff, but we're doing stuff around the climate in the face of a growing population where more food is needed, more water is needed, and more energy is needed. So we're not even being able to work on a static problem. It's a moving problem and a problem that's demanding more resources as pesky human beings. In the UK, we have our own Climate Change Act of 2008. and we have other sorts of things going on. So we're doing quite well on the current past budgets, but increasingly we're being challenged to work faster and faster on climate change, because lots of thought now is thinking 2050 isn't fast enough. There's clean growth strategies, industrial strategies, response to global warming. There's a lot of reports come out of the Climate Change Committee. And in fact, it was the Climate Change Committee who was mentioning that thing about the opportunity for society to grow using environmental practices. Oh, what did we miss there? Was it important? I doubt so. Oh yeah, that thing, 85% of people in the UK are supportive of clean energy. Pretty important, isn't it? Climate crisis seen as one of the most important issues. And yeah, we're not in Europe now, but actually Britain, how embarrassing. Britain was being given final warnings over the cleanliness of our air. I mean, what's that about? We're the UK, we're British. You know? And we think, look at this countryside behind me, that's at Brian Brecon. We think we live in this lovely clean environment, but something like 40,000 people a year are dying of air polluted problems within the UK. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing for an advanced society to be in that situation. And the other thing that's happened a lot, and Herefordshire is one of those counties and councils, is that over 70% of councils across the country now have signed up to climate emergencies. And those may or may not be having impacts directly into your businesses, but I don't know if you have noticed, we certainly do. As we tender for work, we're increasingly asked as a business, what do you do about the environment? What are you doing about sustainability? And it's as much as something hopefully, you know, people like me want to be involved with it, it's something that even if you don't want to be involved with it, you're going to get increasingly bullied, I think, to be involved. And that's where some of the kind of opportunities start arising increasingly, and large companies have to do this now. They have to report on climate things. You know, even with my farming head on, we have a certain amount of agricultural compliance we have to do to make sure that we're operating properly. As discussed, and we'll come back to a bit, doing things of an environmental sustainable nature are really good economically. And also what's increasingly important is the sort of the responsibility, the corporate social responsibility message and your reputation that comes as a result of being involved in this, genuinely being involved, be them the environmental measures and social measures. Increasingly, and particularly with young people, people want to work with businesses that have those sorts of credentials. If you're sort of the loads of money bloke, I think, was he in the 80s, that guy, loads of money. You know, that's kind of almost a bit of a, we don't like that anymore. It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Whereas, you know, we used to think, oh, I'm one of Thatcher's child. It's great. Which I am. I'm a Thatcher child, by the way. And yeah, there's an interesting little stat there. And I don't personally believe it that much. So challenge me all you like on it. But the Carbon Trust came out with a stat, and I think it's more business specific, but it's a general, just to give you a theme. A 20% cut in your energy costs is giving you a 5%, you know, it's the same as a 5% increase in your sales in your average business. So it's really important. And I think, again, in terms of our businesses and thinking forwards, if it's businesses we think going forwards, how can we make ourselves smarter? You know, we often talk about creating efficiencies, but efficiencies in business, it goes straight to the bottom line in terms of profitability, doesn't it? And a lot of these things that you can do, which are good for your environment and good for the people you work with, are also going to be really good for your profitability. So those are some of the sort of obvious opportunities, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, where would you look? And here's a very simple thing. This is the same model that we've just been using. I've been involved the last 12 months with Herefordshire Council trying to help with their climate plan and address the sort of things Herefordshire might do. And whether this is you as a household, you as a business, you as a county, or you as a country, it's useful to look at areas where which to give your attention. And here it's saying buildings, travel, land use, waste, energy. Just certain areas where you can look. And I remember one of the visits we did, the Business Futures Forum a couple of years ago, was to M&M, and they were baling cardboard. Has anyone seen what they do there? Any perhaps from that business? No shakes or nods. But yeah, basically they were spending a lot of money getting rid of cardboard, and instead of spending a lot of money getting rid of cardboard, they started baling it and sending it off for recycling, and they turned it into a cash positive thing. Energy, we'll talk about it a bit. Buildings, you know, why would you not want to insulate your building and make it more comfortable? It just kind of common sense. I live in a house that's 400 years old. And when I started insulating it, I thought, my goodness, this is great. The heating bill's gone down, but actually I can sit in my house and watch telly without shivering. My grandparents told me it was a cold old house, and I just believed them. But no, you can have secondary glazing. You can get this stuff called rock walling go in the roof, and you can insulate your house, put stuff in the windows and draft proof it. It's amazing. Anyway, traveling, we'll talk about cars in a bit. Land use, well, we're not all interested in land use, but whether you've got a little garden, a big garden, or whether you're involved in your parish council and you can plant a few trees, it's really good stuff to get out there and just think about land use. There's colossal opportunity with what we do with land use in terms of sequestration or not using up the resources of the organic matter in the soil. And there's a little thing down there in the corner, and I quite like it because it's cheeky. It's ARSO. It's one of them acronyms, and it basically says avoid using stuff in the first place. So if you don't have to get on a plane, don't. If you can do a Zoom call, do it. If you do have to do some traveling, using traveling as the example, well, why don't you travel by an electric car rather than a petrol one, because it will reduce the amount of energy you use. And if you can't do that, well, you might consider substituting your energy with clean power, which is about generating your own stuff. And if you're really into that sort of model, what you might do is if you've got emissions that you want to get rid of, you might consider offsetting them into schemes. That's what that's about. Talk faster. I'll talk faster. Yeah, I should talk a lot faster. Crikey, it's 1:26, but we did start late. Anyway, so here's some examples, and they're not surprisingly, here's some examples of some solar PV. No, they're not all Hereford examples. I'm instantly lying. The industrial estate down in the bottom right hand corner, that's one down in Swansea. That's Hereford Leisure Centre. We put PV on there. That's TRP in Rotherhurst. That's our farm, top right hand corner. A couple of schools and village halls. That Groundmount is a farm, 1 megawatt site on a farm running their cold stores and grading process lines, and that is a school, I think. So there's examples of stuff. It's just going on. There's a million of those things kicking around the country, over 1 million. There's thousands just in Herefordshire. Does it make any sense anymore? I heard there was this thing called a feed-in tariff years ago, but putting solar PV on is basically considered across the planet now to be basically, as an average across the planet, the cheapest way of producing electricity. And there's some examples there. You can have a look at that. But if you want to make money out of putting solar on your roof, you basically will 12, 13, 14% if you use the power yourself, 6% if you don't use it. That's rate of return. Heat pumps, trying to speed up a bit. Heat pumps basically are like a fridge. So if you imagine your fridge, if you don't know heat pumps, it's like basically putting a fridge in your windowsill, opening the front of the fridge to the outside world, and the back of the fridge has a little bit of heat coming off it. And that heat can be harnessed and condensed and basically run your central heating. Doesn't matter if it's your house, your office, or your factory, heat pumps will do it. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from the thing in the picture on the right, which is a domestic unit, to the commercial unit on your left. The bottom left hand is in Bridgend. That's a car showroom. It was a new car showroom. We put ground source heat pumps in there with underfloor heating across the 5,000 square feet, 50 kilowatts on the roof, and they now have negative energy bills for that property. They're pretty clever. Heat pumps are coming your way, and new build houses may be demanded to have electric heating after 2025 or maybe 2030, depending on how the lobbying goes. There are grants available for heat pumps. There are grants available for solar PV in Herefordshire. There's a MARI grant, a BEAT grant. There's a presentation tomorrow that's being done on those if you don't know about them already. And these grants and things are available. They're not essential, but they make what's already a good idea even better. And we touched on electric cars earlier. We've got that, not that one, that's a black one. We got a more silvery looking Mitsubishi Outlander. Here it's a hybrid. I use it as my car, and it's fantastic. We got a lot of PV here, as you saw earlier, and quite often during the year I get to plug my car into a roof and it gives me free motoring. What's better than that? Awesome. If you use electric car versus a petrol car, it's about 4 times more efficient. Yes, they cost a little bit more, but they're going to a lot cheaper, and there's all sorts of advantages of why you might do it. I think the rate of growth, obviously there's millions of cars across the country, but the rate of growth of electric cars is growing massively, and the government have said all new cars from 2030 will be electric. So you might as well get on it. There's electric vans now, there's electric this and that, and it's cheaper to run them on electric. But yeah, if you've got solar PV and you tie them together, a bit like the heat pump and solar tying together, fantastic. Behavioural changes. Last but one slide, you'll be glad to know. The behavioural changes are fantastic. You know, years ago, we used to simply say to people, well, what do you want to do? Well, just start by changing your light bulbs. I expect you've all changed your light bulbs and you're probably all on LED now. If you're not, I would seriously consider starting doing that sort of stuff because it's just awesome. people get interested when they start doing these things and looking at their energy, because historically, and we'd be the same here at Caplor, we used to just get an energy bill and that was that. And it was tens of thousands of pounds. And then we started going, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. It's thousands of pounds you can save. And it's well worth doing it. That warehouse down in the bottom there, look, they've got LED lighting, they've got heat pumps driving their heating, they've got automatic fast moving doors to keep the heat in, they're probably using electric forklifts, and so on and so on and so on. All sorts of things that are really good for your business. Oh, that's kind, Mark. Look at that. You love my humour. Ah, lots of people don't, but thank you anyway. Anyway, yeah, and back in the home there, look, there's a washing machine. You can get washing machines that use half the power of the other washing machines. You can get all sorts of clever stuff that will send surplus energy into your hot water systems. At the moment, you can switch energy tariffs. If you go to certain energy tariffs, you can, we're just learning about it yesterday or the day before, social energy, for example. They'll offer you a 20 pence export tariff. If you send money power to the grid, you get paid more than your power is costing you. And you can be on a green tariff like Octopus, like Good Energy. You can just switch to a green tariff and it will massively reduce your footprint. And the cost differentials aren't very much now. But don't get beaten into thinking green tariffs are all the same. They're not all the same. Some green tariffs aren't really very green. We can talk about that if you wish. And you will be pleased to know that that is my last slide before we finish. And this is all very well. And hopefully you enjoy some of what I'm waffling on about, but it is a bit of a confusing thing because a lot of what's going on in our world is around technology. And as you see on that graph there, and you just know anyway, technology is just ridiculously fast, isn't it? It's moving so quickly, and we can't really keep up. I can't really keep up. And it's what I've been thinking about for over 10 years. And I struggle to keep up with what's going on with policy, what's going on with technology. And I'm lucky enough, I sit on national boards for the solar industry. I sit on the national board for the trade body for what we do as an industry. I can't keep up. So if I can't keep up and you guys are interested, it'd be no wonder if you couldn't keep up because you've got your day jobs to do anyway. So if you are interested in this sort of stuff, what I would encourage you to do is, not with us, because that would be some like ridiculous selling scam, wouldn't it? But just find people who are in this world who you might want to work with and trust them and work with them. And try, like you probably like in your industry, don't try and just beat people over the head and think what you're doing in terms of sustainability measures as some sort of commodity deal. They're long-term deals of things that you want to get right, because the little tweaks in getting things right will make a huge difference to the result you get. So I try and find some people you can trust to work with and work together collaboratively, share ideas, because actually there's a great opportunity to be had out there, which we have to do anyway, because if we don't do this as a society, in a few decades, our kids are just going to really hate us, if they don't already. There we go. End. Ha.
Amazing. Thank you, Gareth.
Right.
I loved it.
Thank you. Okay. Can you just go off your screen share for me, Gareth, and then I can see everyone again. Okay, so have we got any questions? Anyone got any questions for Gareth? Start with Beth.
Well, I've got a bit of a vested interest, actually. So hello, Gareth. I just wanted to do a bit of a shout out for Caplor, actually, because they've just taken on my son as an apprentice. So thank you very much. And and I want to say, actually, that taking on an apprentice at a really difficult time was really special, so thank you very much. But also the way they're supporting Archie, and he already feels like a valued member of the team, so that's fantastic. But is there much competition out there for you, Gareth? I was just wondering, if obviously it's a huge industry, there's a huge way to go, so presumably there is enough in the pot for everyone, but have you got close competitors that you have to sort of think about your pricing and that sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Beth. And just the very nature you would draw our thoughts to competitors means that your son's out of a job. I'm sorry. Only joking. No, actually, we all really love Archie here. He's great. So message back to hopefully a proud mum and to say to everyone else, Archie is a lovely guy. And I've been a bit bitten by taking on apprentices lately because of young people. But actually, Archie is restoring my faith. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. He's a good lad. In terms of competition, yes, it's it's a hell of a thing, our industry, and it's probably a much bigger answer than we got time for here, but a very fast story. When we started installing solar panels for electricity back in late 2009-ish, there were about 200 companies across the country that were registered like us to do it. That grew to 5,000 registered installers for solar PV. That number's dropped back. There's about 700 registered PV installers across the country now. I know that because I sit on the MCS board, like I said earlier. And that means in theory that, no, there's not masses and masses of people do it. And the danger is, unfortunately, of those 700-ish, there are some that are a bit double glazy-ish. No disrespect to anyone that does double glazing, but you might know what I mean as a phraseology. And that is a bit of a problem, but all industries have little problems like that. And all industries have some really, really good companies. And there are some great companies that have gone through, despite the government's best intentions of having a thing called the solar coaster, as a result of their sort of U-turning policies all the time. There are some great companies out there doing renewable work. And in Herefordshire, you know, there's no one in Herefordshire that I would say is a bad company if you want to deal with people. They're all pretty good, to be fair. And across the country, some good ones. But our industry, we were talking about heat pumps, and I use that as an example, which is interesting. At the moment, across the UK, 20 to 30,000 heat pumps are installed annually. Herefordshire, if we were going to meet our net zero targets, would have to install 50,000 heat pumps in the next 9 years, just Herefordshire. And the government themselves are saying that to meet their targets within the next 10 years, say, they need to install 600,000 heat pumps a year. So at the moment, 20 to 30,000 a year, if you add it up positively, and then we need to do 600,000 plus a year. So there's a huge opportunity. And the problem for that, and some of you guys are plumbers, so I'd urge you to think about it, is that there aren't people out there just jumping to be able to do it. Because most plumbers, if you ever want a plumber, it's hard work to get one, isn't it? So there aren't masses of people desperate for work if they're a plumber saying, oh, I'll do heat pumps, because they're already busy. So it is a challenge to find more people to enter that space. The same with electricians, they're already fairly busy. So we've got a thing just happened at the moment. It's called the Green Homes Grant, and that gives you £5,000 towards measures like heat pumps. But a lot of companies aren't doing it because it's too hard. So people don't come into the market because it's made too hard. With my MCS hat, and also I sit on some panels at the Department of Education, we're working really hard to upskill people because there is such a overall nationally a shortage of people who can do that work. Anyway, I'll stop that talk. I could go on for half an hour on that topic.
Okay, Stuart.
Thank you, Gareth. Very informative and thought-provoking. You mentioned going through the presentation that you've got the heat pumps coming now, and you also mentioned about the advances in technology and the speed of technology. What do you think is going to be the biggest invention or thing then in the next 5 to 10 years with regards to renewable energy?
Good one. Yeah. You know, on the telly, you see that guy, Patrick Vallance, he's the chief scientific officer. He and I met before COVID. This isn't a world before COVID. And he was saying exactly the same as you, Stuart, on the same thing, because he sits on a thing called the Energy Innovation Panel. And I was saying, well, I think, as far as I can see, all the technologies that we need to be able to do what we have to do to meet those climate challenges, they already exist. So it's about an evolution of those things to do what we need to do. And I think, therefore, there's evolution in electric cars, there's evolution in batteries, there's evolution in all those products. So it's basically more about evolution, I think. And one of the things that will become more prominent, but it's going to be years away, is probably something like hydrogen and biogas, depending on how it's produced. But the grid, Kay doesn't have to change the grid in Herefordshire, in the town of Hereford. You've got 77% of the grid can take green gas at the moment, or hydrogen. But actually, it's years and years of investment to get to that point. So given that so much of heating is done on gas, it's going to be a big major change when that does happen, but it's going to be into the 2030s, unless the government want to put, you know, astronomical investment in right now, which might be a good thing to do. So I think major change there. Major change will also be in the grid, because all the things at the moment that we can do require electricity and clean electric, and the grid just isn't up to it. In Herefordshire at the moment, we can only do another 150 megawatts of generation in a thing that uses terawatts of energy because of the grid constraints. So as we go towards more electric heating, as we go towards electric cars, we'll have to have the grid catch up. So yes, we have the technologies, they will all evolve at massive changing paces. And, you know, technology changes. We got a grant last year off those lovely beat people early last year because we had some car charging technology which was considered revolutionary. By the time they gave me the grant and we installed the things, they were mainstream and you had to install them. You know, that was in a space of a few months. So it changes very fast, which is why it's like good to work with people, because you start a conversation with a business, it might be 6 months before they do something and the world's moved on. So you've got to kind of trust them to move with it.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Go to Paul. Well, we've got 2 Pauls. We'll go to Paul Edgerton first.
Hiya. Cheers for the talk, Gareth. That was really good. Just wondered, you said briefly that some of the so-called green energy companies that supply us aren't so green. I'm with Octopus. Are they all right, or are they a bit shifty?
Yeah. Octopus.
Or can you not really talk about that sort of thing?
No, I can. I could talk to the cats come over about most things. I love talking. Cows come over, not cats. The cat's always bloody there. The Octopus are pretty good, but basically if we're going to try and do some research on it for our parish council, because I want to be able to offer it to our village, and we're looking at the different tariffs. I can circulate to you if it's of interest. There's lots and lots of tariffs, but to be able to qualify to sell electric and call it green, either you generate all that power yourself, a bit like Good Energy do, for example. They pretty much only sell what they generate, or they have an exact tie-up with the generator. So the windmill over there is generating power sold directly to Good Energy, or might be Octopus. Other companies, they do things, they buy what are called REGOs. Can't remember what it stands for, but they're certificates. They're buying the idea that they've got green power and they're just trading those on. And the power, the cost of those certificates are really cheap. And actually there's a bit of questioning in the industry, there's a bit of purism that maybe you're not really buying clean energy, you're buying a certificate that says you've got clean energy, which traces back not quite so reliably. But in essence,
if you sold it as green, you want it to be green, don't you? You know, you're paying, you know, it's not a great deal bit more, but you want to sit here and think, yeah, I'm lighting up, I'm trying to do my bit. Do you know what I mean? You know? Yeah.
And if you're on a green tariff, don't panic and think it's terrible, but it might just be worth asking and researching, which is what we're going to do anyway. So you can wait for us to do it. Is it genuinely a good green tariff? I think Octopus are pretty good, to be fair. And they've got some fantastic tariffs because you've got genuine time of use tariffs with them, those flexi rates. And some of those, if I'm understanding Octopus's one correctly, they'll actually pay you in the middle of the night to take some power and things if you've got a battery.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, the other Paul.
Hi, thanks very much, Gareth. That was really interesting. I have a bit of a background in this. I did some postgraduate work in environmental decision making. I was wondering what your take is on, in a non-political way, about whether the government, UK nationally, could be doing more. You know, are we on enough of a pace at the moment to actually get to a properly sustainable zero carbon country?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. The answer, if it's a yes or no question, is no. I think the Climate Change Committee themselves said we're likely to miss our 5th and 6th carbon budgets. So we're not doing enough. We're not, certainly haven't been doing enough around renewable heat. The options that we have, you know, we could do colossally more, and we could do colossally more a lot faster. And as has been exampled in tomorrow, I might be meeting our lovely Bill Wiggin to talk about it. And certainly it's being lobbied through the industry things that I do. The Green Home Grant thing that's just been announced. Are you all aware of this Green Homes Grant? Yes, no, nods. It's a domestic thing. And I touched on it earlier. Yeah, here's £5,000 to go towards your heat pump or some solar or some insulation measures. It was introduced in September. Look at us, we're announcing £2 billion of green investment. A lot of it was basically renewable heating incentive, which is already announced, being rebadged as something different. So it's a bit of a con, it's a bit of a government trick. And it's not me being political, I don't mind what colour the government is as long as they look after the climate. So for a start, the policy in itself was a bit of a trick, I think. Secondly, they then said, yeah, you're going to spend £2 billion by March, which was just impossible. You know, we were in lockdown with Brexit. Our supply chains, even for the best heat pump, you know, from Mitsubishi, we were 3 months out on ordering kit. And somehow the country was going to go from zero to, well, not zero, but 20-odd thousand heat pumps. It was hundreds of thousands of heat pumps to suddenly be done in a few months when you couldn't even get the kit, let alone have staff available to be able to do it. So I think that the government, sadly, and I do not know why they keep doing it, they seem to do it with all sorts of things. And they announce policies like in September. The paperwork is not really in place until October, November. Now it's been changed that they're going to extend it until 2022. But still, we're having a meeting with our MP tomorrow. Our industry is meeting with BEIS pretty much every day to try and get a policy that works. Why do it? So even when the governments have got great intentions, I think they seem to just trip themselves up with odd policy, which is a shame. But the overall policies are not enough, fast enough. Hereford Council, they declared a climate emergency 2 years ago. But I've been involved, we're still writing the plan. We're still talking about what we might do. In Hereford Council, don't get me wrong, they've done a lot of good environmental things over the years, but they made a declaration that they would be net zero by 2030 as a county. That's all of us, 190,000 people. But we're not on target to do that. So long answer short, and again, I could go on about it for an hour or two. No, the answer is no.
Any other questions? Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, hi Gareth. Yeah, that was a great talk. Yeah, 2020 and COVID proved that globally, nationally, we all can do something, and we did. We went into lockdown. It feels like it is the government and of the world that are slowing this whole process down. What can we learn from COVID that we could use, or are we still just in the hands of the governments? And the second question is about electric cars. Hand on heart, is electric cars the way ahead, or is electric cars, are they just a stopgap before something better will come along?
Well, I think, the answer is almost sort of half correlate together, but perhaps going backwards with cars, we in Herefordshire, rural economy, look at that picture behind us from Round Brecon, it's a beggar's muddle, and I'll sit in lots of meetings and I say, well, you can put all the buses on you like, but I live in Found Hope, I want to get to Hereford, I'm not going to wait for the one bus that goes at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to drive a car. Yes, there's other people, and I think Hereford Council are onto a winner here. A lot of Herefordshire's traffic problems are because of people commuting. It's because of people jumping in the car to run the kid 1 mile down the road to deliver them to school. It's because I'm too lazy to walk to get a pint of milk from the shop when I live in the street from the shop. There's a lot of people could do a lot of things not to drive around so much. We've proved that, haven't we, with COVID? One of the lessons from COVID, as we're sat here now, isn't it, is that we don't actually have to physically get together all the time. Look at if we'd met, which would have been really nice, by the way. I can come on to my personal view of Zoom in a minute. But we'd have all driven into Hereford or crossed Hereford or done whatever, all 16 of us. It's wasteful, isn't it, really? So we've learned a lot of massive lessons around transport that we don't necessarily have to be doing that transport. I told you the example of Caplor Horizons. We are on planes every week going somewhere to 20 different countries around the world, and all of it is being done by remote access now. That is colossal change. So we've learned something huge in the last 12 months about what we can do. And that's why people have been saying Extinction Rebellion and Richard Attenborough, we need to treat climate change in the same sort of way. People talk about putting it on a war footing, a bit like we have with COVID. If with COVID, which in the grand scheme compared with climate change, and don't get me wrong, COVID's a horrible thing and people I know have suffered with it and passed away, sadly, but COVID is nothing compared with what's happening with climate change. Yet somehow it's, because it's a bit in the future, but it's now. And since 07, I was seeing firsthand things in 07 that made me just stop and go, no, I've got to change my life a bit. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to suddenly never go on a plane and I'm going to stop drinking gin, which I'm not, just for the record. I'm not going to stop doing those things, but we can all do stuff to massively affect our carbon footprints and our outputs. And the cool thing is, unlike it was 20 years ago, this stuff all makes good sense. If you waste less food, it just means you don't buy so much. If you don't keep buying new clothes when you don't need to, if you don't drive here, there and everywhere, and you just think about your journeys a bit, it's all really good sense. Cars will be definitely a thing of the future. In towns, they can be much less of a thing of the future, but car ownership will change. I think my prediction for that is as cars get more and more electric and more people already switch to not really owning a car, they sort of lease it. Then we'll get self-drive cars. And before we know it, why on earth would I want to waste 20 grand buying a car when I can Uber it up and just get it delivered to me? And that means I can have that gin when I'm with my mates anyway, and then just get a driverless Uber home in 10 years time. So I think the model of the idea that we own vehicles will change massively, but we'll still have them. And people like us out here in the sticks will have them a long time after other people. We versus government. We are the people that have to make those changes. And therefore, that's why I love to work like I was this morning for an hour or so with our parish council. How can we do stuff that inspire people to do these things? That's why I love being able to talk with you guys. If you guys all just go out later and do one little tiny thing that will help us with the climate, then that's massive, isn't it? And if we all keep drip feeding ourselves with these little actions, well, guess what? Bill, Wigan and Jesse, they'll do what we ask them to because they quite fancy their jobs, don't they? They quite like their jobs. And therefore they'll eventually crumble too. But ultimately they got kids as well. They're not weird people living in complete isolation. They're just human beings like the rest of us. And they got lots of things to juggle, bless them. I wouldn't envy any of them that job at the moment. But government have a massive task role to play in this, Richard, and it'll be the thing that swings change with carrots and with sticks to make us do it. But we as individuals, if we all just keep acting and we all just keep making that little bit of noise and making those little movements, then that'll be what will change us. But we have to do it pretty fast. We have to realize that this really is, way more serious than what we think we got with COVID. And that's not to take away that COVID is a horrible thing.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Gareth, for answering our questions. And thanks for your talk today. If anyone has anything they want to share, I know we've got some new people. We don't normally go around and let everyone speak if they don't want to. But if anyone is wanting to share anything about their business or what they've been up to, especially the new people, then please put your hand up or put a note on. I do know that Mark has got an announcement of an event that's coming up. Do you want to share about that, Mark?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, just a little plug really on behalf of the Cyber Centre in Hereford, the Midlands Cyber Centre. They've got a workshop clinic coming up on the 26th of Jan. I'll share you the link. Just put it into the chat room now, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. Have a look at that link. It would be a really good way for Hereford businesses to support what they're doing down at Rotherwas. It's organised on a very big scale, this one. It's in conjunction with the National Centre for Cybersecurity, the Midlands one, and there's university involvement as well. And the idea will be, from what I understand, is that you'll go along and attend this virtual clinic and they will find out what the businesses around here want to do with their cybersecurity, and then they can do a package for you, because there is, there's help available at Rotherwas, and these will be done on a one-to-one basis. So I reckon it's a really good thing you could do with signing up for. So have a look at that link and get back to me if you want any more bit of general information about this sort of stuff. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, brilliant. So yes, at the bottom, Chris. Hi.
Hi, you all right? It's just a quick one, really, just to kind of get the word of mouth and get your help of word of mouth across social platforms, if that's okay. So we run the 2 Vodafone stores in Hereford and Ross and Wye. Obviously, we're currently closed. Now, what we know is that there's probably people out there in Herefordshire and in Ross and Wye and in the surrounding areas that need some help, because normally they'd come into store. Now, without anybody being at store, they may be at a loss where they just need some technical help, or they want to learn how to do something. So what we're saying is, if anybody needs any free help, so anybody needs any help for anything, then to get in contact with us. We've got a phone, we can take calls at home. We've put a bit of a "we're here to help" on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page, and our Instagram page. So if you could just share that, if anybody does need any help, it might be a little thing like, oh, I can't use WhatsApp, then to get them to send us a message. I'll get one of my team to give them a call or send them a message back, and we just want to let people know that we're here to help whilst our stores are closed.
Right, thank you, Chris. Great support. Stuart.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm, as you probably know, I'm a new member to the group, and it's been very interesting and very interesting this meeting today. Lots of positive comments and talks, so thank you for that as well, Gareth. Just to introduce myself, really, so that people know about me. I'm based down here in Ross-on-Wye. I do get my mobile phone from Vodafone in Ross-on-Wye, so heads up to you, Chris. The service in there is always good. But I've worked in financial services since 1989. And then in 2019, I got made redundant. I've worked for a number of big providers, that insurance company that you'll be aware of, Liverpool Victoria, LV, and Guardian. But I got made redundant in July 2019, and then I got made redundant in February 2020. So having been made redundant twice in an 8-month period, being the wrong side of 50, I decided actually I'm going to practice what I've been preaching to financial advisors for the last 30 years and become a financial advisor myself. So I have. Obviously not great timing, just before the lockdowns and pandemic. But I, rather than focusing on pensions investments, I focus on protection, and particularly business protection, shareholder protection, key person protection, relevant life, things along those lines, as well as family protection, life assurance, income protection, critical illness. So I'm going to hopefully be joining these meetings on a regular basis going forward. But just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stuart. And Jamie.
I'll be very quick. Free business support. I am delivering free business support programs through the Marches Herefordshire Growth Hub. They are for pre-startup businesses right through to established businesses. So if you're a business that would benefit from support, and a lot of it is group work, or it can be one-to-one tailored support, then just let me know and I can tell you what programs are on offer and whether we can help you. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jamie. Helen.
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to introduce myself. Great to join the team. So thank you for this morning or this afternoon. That was a really great talk. I'm Helen. I've gone into HR, self-employed in the middle of last year. Good idea, bad idea, I'm not sure, but I sure as hell know what furlough means now and can offer advice on that area. But to be honest, I'm loving being self-employed. I've been sort of in large companies, global companies for many, many years, but it's nice to come back to Herefordshire. I live the other side of Leominster, between Leominster and Ludlow, and it's just great to be supporting local small businesses that don't need full-time HR, but just want to understand what furlough means. So great to meet you all and hope to get to know you better.
Great, thank you. Good to meet you, Helen. Anyone else? I think we've got time for one more. Anyone? No? Okay. Right, so I'll wind things up because we like to finish on the dot for 2 o'clock. Thank you very much, Gareth, for your talk today and joining us and answering some questions. Thank you to all the new people who've joined us. We will be back again for our next session, which is on Wednesday, the 10th of February. And hopefully we will have Adam Brooks back to speak to us again. And hopefully it's going to be something along the lines of wake up, shake up, shape up for 2021. I think we all need a bit of that. So hopefully you can join us again on Wednesday, the 10th of Feb. Look out in your inbox for an email from me later on today with the link and all the link to the recording and all these links that people are putting in the chat. It's good to see you all. Keep safe and we'll see you all next month.